Good morning, dear Sangha, dear friends. Welcome to the Wake Up Retreat. We're glad that so many of you come this year. I think I shared with you about 2 years ago, and I looked back into my notes, so I thought I'd do something slightly different. And Thầy Bang Tuệ brought insight shared yesterday about some of the basic practice. We have a few days ahead, so hopefully some other brother and sister will share some more. So I just share with you. I'm thinking about some of the questions that many of us have been asking over the years. Some of the things like what are my goals in life? Where's my direction? And I think they were particularly to this retreat too. I think there's some friend asking how do I do mindful dating? And of course, how do I reduce my suffering? Or how to end the suffering? I think those are some of the many questions being asked. Well, another question is how to be a better activist, especially for those who like to contribute to society. I think another one is how to use technology. I think some of those questions are really in our mind about how we deal with the present society and how we can contribute to. I remember, I think around October 23rd, year 2013, we went on a US tour, and toward the end of the tour, our teacher and our monastic delegation were invited to Google headquarters. they call Googleplex. And they asked our teacher, because he's very famous, about giving a day of mindfulness. 2 years before, 2011, we also came to Google headquarters, and we gave a half day of mindfulness there to all the employees of Google. And they broadcast everywhere, to all the various center of Google, so everybody can listen. So if you're interested, you can also go to YouTube, I think, or some Google website. I think they probably have a Dharma talk there. So they especially asked our teacher to talk about 3 things. One is inspiration. How we get inspiration has to do with maybe the sense of direction. And 2 is innovation. And 3 is insight. So the Google employees are very smart and inquisitive. I think the leader wants us to be inspired and to have highly productive, so they can compete, they can be before anybody else in doing things. And so they asked our teacher to talk about inspiration, innovation, and insight. So to me, I equate the inspiration, like in Buddhism, to volition. Or motivation. So what is really important, what inspires, what do we want to do, our goals in life and so on. And in the sense of the Google is to inspire to come up with a new product that hasn't been thought of before, and they can contribute to the society. So for innovation, I equate it with begin anew. Have a new look at things. Come up with something before that nobody thought about it. And the insight, of course, is the eureka, the light bulb that come up, so you can really do the new thing. So our teacher will share about it, and basically a lot of things we do having to do with our logo is mindfulness, concentration, and insight. So those are the power generator that help us to come up with the insight that everybody is looking for. And of course, you need a certain amount of intellectuality to study and to come. But the insight is more something deep into the subconsciousness that sometimes just the intellect cannot grasp, cannot get to. So this is the aim of we call the Googler, I think the Google employee. And so I thought of something as a comparison between the two with the monastic. So among the culture of the Googler, you got high, you got paid very high, and you expect to be hard worker and to produce all the product. So you're very driven. You can play and you can pose, you can rest. We went to the headquarters Googleplex, and they have about 10 cafeteria, small cafeteria, all over the workplace. And there are a couple playroom. So the employee was typing like crazy, like they coding, you know, all the thing. And whenever they get too intense, they take a break, they went to cafeteria, they can get the drink, they can get coffee, they can get sandwich, anything they want. You have a couple of places to lie down, and then they go back to work, they do it again. So the place where they eat is very close to the place where they work. There's no differentiation. So their motto is to make all the word information available and useful for all. And that's what their aim, their goal is really to make all the information available for all. And I think one of the logo they do is do no evil. So that's one of the guidelines, do no evil. Since 2015, they changed into the headquarters is now Alphabet Inc. So they come up with a new logo, do the right thing. So that's what they were doing. So the employee are very hard worker. They type, they produce all the time. They are very competitive because they need to come up with a product before somebody else. They compete with, I don't know, Facebook, Apple, and any other software company. And our teacher was giving first a half-day mindfulness, because most employees are supposed to expect to work 14 to 16 hours a day. So they really, if they took 4 hours to listen to the talk, the mindfulness, then they have to work later in the afternoon. And I remember on the day mindfulness in 2013, on the afternoon, I was sitting in the back room, and I saw some employees would listen to our teacher, or some monk were sharing the Dharma. And there were a couple guys who were sitting, and he was banging on the computer as he would listen, because you know, I think they encode something. So really, they work very hard. And the thing is, they have a software they call iPose. And it's some kind of software allow them to rest and follow the breath or something. But the thing is, it's very difficult to rest and pause when you are expect to to work 14, 15 hours a day. I'm not sure you have done it before. I did for about 12 hours a day before when I worked in the bank, and it was so hard to concentrate it because there's so much stress to do something like that. And they come up with a lot of other products, but let me compare with the culture I call mindfuler, which is instead of Googler. I mean, the people who practice mindfulness, the monastic are the leader of that. So for our aim is to make humankind insight and compassion available to all. So we have to come up with insight and come up with compassion and make it available to all to practice. And so our motto would be like, be awake and do good. The other logo is nowhere to go, nothing to do, not driven. Of course, the other one is understanding and love. Understand means insight, and love means to do the good thing to other people. So the requirement for us is also some dedication in the daily mindful practice. So a little bit every day you have to practice mindfulness in order to get to the concentration and insight. And of course for us is to breathe, relax, and smile, and be at the present moment. And if we get the chance also to look deeply into ourselves and see if there's some suffering and to transform the suffering. And the other one is to look deeply into the ultimate reality so we can see the interconnectiveness, interbeing of everything, and be liberated from delusion of self. So I think for the Googler, they have all these things. They produce a lot of product, but they lack the tool and the training to come up with the insight. And this is maybe the reason they ask our teacher to come and help them to get the insight. So the insight is pretty easy to get, but it requires some dedication to the practice. So you need to be a little bit mindful of everything we do all day long. And sometimes the insight will come along. So the Google, they come up with a Google Glass. I'm not sure whether they still, I think they stopped for a while. Basically, it had to do with the army when they were doing combat. They have what we call some kind of camera, and they have what we call enhanced reality. So they can report to the headquarters what they were seeing, and the headquarters have some people who analyze the situation and come up with more information and so on. And later on, they use as a virtual reality. For us, the reality is what we see. We don't need any product, any special glass to enhance our reality. I think reality is more what we gain from the experience. For example, I'm here from the beginning, the formation of Blue Cliff Monastery. So when I walk around the playground, walk around the monastery, I see things that other people don't see. I saw the foundation of this meditation hall before it was built. And I saw at that time around the meditation hall, there was no grass at all. There was no pond. There was no lotus pond. Later on, we add the lotus pond. So I see the tree through the winter, through the spring, through the summer. So I think to me, this is the enhanced reality that we do. We don't need to have some device or something to help us to add it up. I remember I was doing some typing, and there were a wireless keyboard. It's probably a cheap keyboard, I'm not sure, you know. But I was typing on the wireless keyboard. But then it takes about a few fractions of a second or a second before it appears on the screen. And after a while, it bothered me that you have to do something like that. It's not real time, you know. So I stopped doing that. So now if I type something, I type on the computer, I type on mini iPad, but not using. So to me, technology helps us to do that. But you cannot depend all the time on technology. I grew up in a country at a time when there was no TV. And for a while, we didn't have no telephone too. We talk about landline telephone. And I think at that time, no PC or no computer. And of course, no cell phone at that time. So I use them, but I'm the master of the technology. I can stop anywhere. I think to me, depend on where you grow up and where you, sometimes we are conditioned so much on the devices, we call now smartphone, right? That sometimes we are constantly checking, constantly using, and we are so dependent on that. I remember we were driving in a car with some monks. I think it was a long trip, I think. And some Vietnamese monk was asking questions about some Vietnamese term. How do you find the equivalent in English? So we come up with a few words, but we think that it's not exactly the exact word that reflect that translation. So I would think about, I say, okay, let me write on a piece of paper, and I think about it, and when I go home, I would take a look at the dictionary. I find the synonym or the exact word. But one of the younger monks say, well, oh, we don't have to wait. He just grabbed one of the cell phone and he went on the internet. He looked something. I'm not sure he come with the thing. So to me, this is the difference between different generations, how you come so dependent. Any information you need, you get it from the cell phone all the time. And then sometimes it's useful, but sometimes it's not. I remember I was on the phone conference call with various groups in California and Plum Village. And I think Sister Joy was with me in the phone. And she used a different cell phone. I use a computer. And when she talked, I hear her because she's sitting next to the room with me, but about a minute and a half, 2 minutes later, I hear her voice on my earphone. And it's kind of very strange in the sense we think that it is the ultimate reality, but it's not, because it's delayed, because they have to send somewhere in some relay station in New Jersey, and they have to send back to New York. So actually, it's not real time. So to me, the reality is more the present moment, here and now. And this is the thing that we have to regain back our place in the present moment and not depend so much on technology. Let me listen to one sound. So what are the tools that we have? And in this retreat, we will get the chance to share with you is about mindful breathing and mindful step. So everywhere we walk, we are mindful of our step, and we stay 100% in the present moment. So we try not to get caught thought into a lot of project plan. So we do things slowly than other people, but surely. And we stay focused, so we have a clear in mind of what we want to do in life. And if everybody around us help us to do that, with this, the Sangha that we are forming, then it's easier to practice than if you try to practice alone in your apartment, in your home. And of course, the other one is having meditation, deep looking, stopping, like Thầy Mam Tuệ has shared yesterday, and have a being anew, what I mentioned. And this is not to that touching of the earth. Hopefully, in this retreat, we get the chance to touch the earth, to Mother Earth, and transform some of our suffering. And of course, we will get the chance to share with you the 5 mindfulness training with the basic guideline for practicing mindfulness. So back at the time when I was coming to the US, most of our goal as a young man and young woman is, I was by myself. I was a refugee. I came, so I have to work. I have to make a living. And I try to get the education, a degree, of course, because we know that that's very important to, to get a job, to sustain yourself. And after I graduate, then to get a decent job, to have some income so you can be independent. And then along the way, maybe try to get a partner, get some love, and also to expand the circle, to have more friends, social life, and so on. And then usually after working for a while, then you get more a graduate degree, which is more like a profession or vocation. Sometimes you may change after you work for a while at the job, and you might find that it's not exactly what you want to do. So you want, and along the way, when you are secure with your income, everything is to have a family and to have children. So that's not normal path what most of us will go through. Does anybody remember the 5 basic needs? I remember some of you were before. The 5 basic needs, I think to all creatures is one is to survive and to live. And the other one is to procreate, to continue, maybe to have offspring, to have children, and all the animals, everything do the same. I found it very interesting in the spring when we see here the plant was dormant. They lose all the leaf in the winter, and when the warm come, the first thing they do is they have flower. That means they were having sex. They want to procreate first. And I found it very interesting because we went to see the cherry blossom tree in Washington, D.C., and that's the first thing that come out of the branches, the flower, the pollen, whatever they do, And then after the flower kind of talk to each other, then the leaves start to come out. So I found it very interesting because normally, as as a human being, I would get the leaf first and generate some more energy before I go for the babies. You know? But in nature, that's what the plant was doing first. And along with that, to give incentive to have a baby is you have desire to be loved. That's the third one. And then you have desire to love somebody. Because if you don't love anybody, then it's hard to have children. So you have to have some incentive to do something like that, you know. And then the last is to understand, to know something. And that's been the search for humankind, to have knowledge, to do things. And of course, the better if, when you have knowledge, of course, you can produce the insight, which is more important than knowledge. So those are the 5 basic needs that drive everything around here we do, and also that drive around things we do here. So maybe I should add a little bit more extra, because this is my path before I encountered the Dharma. I encountered our teacher in 1993. So when I encountered our teacher in 1993, I thought there was something special about our teacher. He has a special aura. They have a special lightness and a little bit of, I don't know how to say it. He practiced what he preached. It's very simple, it's deep, it touches our heart, and it's something that we can do, and something we can imitate. So I think I found my path, in a sense. I found a spiritual path. And this is very important. In a sense, you are lucky being young, and you kind of already find the spiritual path that you can practice a long way. So you can still do all those things, but you add that element of the mindfulness, of spiritual, into your life. And the simple thing is to be awakened at any moment. Well, the youth movement is called Wake Up. So I think they have a suggestive to have a woke life, you know, and also to be happy. So what if your goal, even here, is really to be happy? That's another goal that we haven't done it yet. And you can be productive. You can compete. You can be successful. But the primary goal of your life is to be mindful and to be happy. And that's something new. And I think many of our friends are starting to doing that. So, of course, you have to combine some ways so you can have a profession, you can have a family, and still be happy and to do good for society. So tomorrow, hopefully we share with you about the 5 mindfulness training, which is a very concrete way of practicing mindfulness in daily life. And together with you form a group of likewise mind to practice together, then you can produce the collective energy that help us, first of all, to be diligent in the practice and to see concrete result into your life, mainly to see in our relationship with our loved one, with our family. That's a good barometer, a good criteria to see whether your practice is successful or not. It's how much you can communicate, how much you can relate to other people around you, especially your father, your mother, your grandmom, your cousin, your spouse, your children, and so on. So this is very important for us to form a sangha, the beloved community. And the last board. It saved me a lot on the writing. So in the department of love, you can love your partner, you can fall in love with your partner, you can form a family, you can love your children, but you can aspire to a higher love, and which we call a four immeasurable mind of love. And they're pretty basic. Most of the people would know. First is loving kindness, maitri. The second is compassion, karuna. And the third is joyfulness, is mudita. And the fourth is inclusiveness, or upeksha. And loving kindness also means that you have to have a capacity to offer love. Often people want to love, but they don't have a capacity to offer love. First of all, you have to be happy with yourself. You have to be joyful, so you can see what the need of the other person. So you can apply the proper medicine to that person. Often people love some other people, but actually they just love the image that they have of the other person. I remember my mother, for example, when I was young, she was sharing many times. She said that in the family we have a doctor, we have a pharmacist, but we don't have a dentist. So why you, son, why don't you go grow up and study to be a dentist so we can have a dentist in our family? And I say, Mom, I'm allergic to bad smell in the morning. I would vomit. So I don't think I can be a dentist for you. And she kind of repeat that thing for a few years until later on she just gave up the idea. But you know, sometimes this is an example. Is sometimes we love somebody, but we project our idea into the other person. So we have to have that capacity. And of course, if you're not happy with yourself, how can you love the other person? If you're still a lot of suffering from the family, from your past, from your parents, from your grandparents, you need to transform yourself first before you can start to have relationship and love the other person. Many of our Vietnamese monks and nuns, our parents suffer a lot through the war. They were the refugee, they were caught in the battle, they do all kinds of things. So there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of suffering. Some of them, the parents were in prison, you know, because they caught in the wrong party who lose the war, and they got caught in a re-education camp. They become a boat people, they come over here. So the suffering got buried down in the subconsciousness. So when the children are born, grow up, they don't know, but somehow they have that kind of suffering within themselves. They have a fear in themselves. In the US, we went through the hippie generation. I'm not sure your parents probably hippies, our grandparents, I'm not sure. And in those days, they made a lot. They got a lot of divorce. So many people grow up in a one-parent family kind of thing. So there was some kind of suffering along that. So the whole idea is to practice stopping and have deep looking, so we can see where our suffering are coming from. So we can embrace them, and you can transform them. I remember in 2005, I left Vietnam 1975, and in 1995 I came back to Vietnam after 20 years. I'm from South Vietnam, so I never been to the North Vietnam. Even when I came back in 1995, I came to South Vietnam, where I grew up only. And in 2005, after 39.5 years, our teacher were allowed to go back to Vietnam for the first time with a whole 250 monastic delegation. And the first thing we land is in Hanoi, in the north. And I never set foot in Hanoi in the north before. And when we set foot, of course, there was a lot of politics around the time. Some people are resistant, doesn't want us to come to Vietnam. Some people wanted to come to Vietnam. So we have a lot of warning about how to behave and how to do things, so we can represent Plum and our teacher. And I remember the first night I slept in Hanoi at the crowded in the temple. Somehow I have some fear that come up in me. And I don't know exactly what kind of fear. Of course, I grew up in the South, and we have a lot of propaganda. The North was bad. There was the enemy, so I come to the territory of the enemy to stay there, to preach the Dharma, But then I looked further after a while, and I found out the more root cause is in about 300 years before, there were a split between the Trần and the Nguyễn, the Prince Trần on the north and the Prince Nguyễn, who served the Emperor Lê. And they fight each other, they kill each other. So the Nguyễn dynasty lose the battle, and they had to run to the south. So my great ancestor migrate from the north, run away from the Trần dynasty to go south. And we set up the land, and we start to live in South Vietnam in those days. So some of the fear I feel is actually that fear of my great ancestor of the Nguyễn, who has to run away from Hanoi to go down to the south. So the suffering has many layers. Often we come to the monastery, we stay for a week, 2 weeks, a month, and we peel that layer of suffering, and we're so happy. Oh, I have transformed myself. I'm happy now. I no longer suffer. Maybe I have a better relationship with my father, something like that, or maybe I have a better relationship with my mother. But that's not the core of the onion. There are many layers of suffering. So the first fear I was thinking is because the war in Vietnam between the North and the South, the communists and the capitalists, and therefore I fear because I never set foot. But actually there are many generations of my great-grandfather who has to run away, avoid being killed by the North at that time. So there are many layers of it that we have to look into that in order to transform our suffering in the self. And once you transform and you can be peaceful, you can be content, and there you can contribute more to the society. So the internal introspection of deep looking and transform them, even though it might not look as it's very productive, but actually once you master the practice and you're able to transform yourself, your mind is very clear, and you can do anything you can do will benefit the society. Anything you do will benefit your friend, your family. So this is something that's worth investing rather than do all those kind of things, So I think to me, another thing I want to do to mention is there are a lot of things about cloud computing, cloud marketing, and I'm not used to cloud. I think the only cloud I think is when it's about to rain. That's it. And Google has a business of invited you to internet. Of course, it requires constant internet dependent, constant online information. I like something more like I produce a Microsoft Word document, and I save on my PC, and I save in the USB chip, and I can bring it with me anywhere. I don't have to depend on Google document, Google whatever you call it, And to me, there is a tendency to gear us toward constant online demand. And to me, it's very healthy if we can really enjoy nature, enjoy what we call no internet day, enjoy being offline for a little while. So I think to me, that's very important for us to have a time to do introspection, to look deep into ourselves and to see some of the force of the suffering, and to see why we behave a certain way, why we are allergic to some people, why some people we don't feel comfortable or relate to, and to really cleanse your lens so you can be a better person, be a happy person, and then you can contribute to society. So I think this is the main thing I want to share with you today. And hopefully we have more lecturers who will share with you in the next few days about the art of communication and maybe the 5 mindfulness training. Thank you very much. So we can listen to 3 sound of the bell.